Well, such a busy period, Patrick, with Aintree and all the drama from there and Sandown coming hot on the heels in the back at Cheltenham. But just how much are you looking forward to these 5 days in the sunshine at Punchestown Festival?
Sure. Look, Punchestown is our big festival, and from the very start of the season, we're always thinking about getting our horses to Punchestown. So, we start a bit later, a bit slower than everyone else, but I think it helps us see out the season better in the end.
Yeah, I hope your stamina's up for this. Let's have a quick run through the first couple of days, the potential highlights over the Tuesday and Wednesday cards. Kopek Des Bordes, he's up against Salvatore Mundi in the KPMG Champion Novice. And you're actually reunited with the latter following his Aintree win over Romeo Culia. How do you see this unfolding?
Yeah, sure. Look, it's a great race to get the week off to a start. Look, Kopek obviously sets a standard. He's a worthy favourite. I don't think Paul had to think too long and hard about which one he was going to choose. He's come out of Cheltenham really well. He's had obviously lots of time to recover, and he's going to be very difficult to beat. But I'm looking forward to getting another go on Saturday on Monday. It was the first two furlongs were a bit messy in the sprint novices, and he ran a bit keen. But then by the time we turned away from the stands, he couldn't lie up. So I came back in and suggested we take the hood off him. So we took the hood off him. He travels a lot sweeter in Aintree. And Aintree probably is his ideal, flat track, good ground, good gallop. Definitely it was his ideal circumstances. But, I think we'll get a lot of that in Punchestown. And I think we'll make Kopek go a bit.
Good stuff. Yeah, looking forward to that race. Really good. And the big novice chase over the extended 3 miles there. And I sense you believe there might still be a few questions to be answered in this division in general, even at this late stage of the season.
Well, look, I think is this probably the best novice chase of the whole year? I think it's better than the novice chases that were in Cheltenham even. You've got Ballyburn, the DRF winner, you've got Lecky Watson, the Cheltenham winner, and you've got Imperi Pass, the Aintree winner. So they're all clashing. Look, Ballyburn obviously landed in the ditch in Cheltenham, but I think Danny set some very slow fractions on Dancing City that day, and Paul ended up having to restrain Dancing City, and I don't think that helped him. So I think we'll probably ride him slightly different, probably ride him slightly more positive, and I think his jumping won't be an issue, being ridden that way. So he is the one to beat, and again, I don't think Paul had to think too long and hard at which one to go. But Imperi Pass stepping up to 3 miles is going to be fascinating. He's never ran over before, but he's obviously well able to win over 2.5. And I thought he was very impressive in Aintree over 2.5, and stepping up to 3 miles could even bring about more improvement. And then Lecky Watson is obviously the Brown Advisory winner from Cheltenham. Now look, did he? That race probably did fall apart a little bit, but he won with his ears pricked. And he's won around Punchestown before, so it's a proper matchup. And I'm reunited with Illil Antique, and we'll probably be taking our time at the back and hopefully settling away. But it wouldn't be beyond the realms possibility that if the top three ended up taking much on, that we could come and cause a surprise.
Yeah, fantastic race, really. As you say, I hope they go a good gallop, because this really could be a race that produces a potential Gold Cup horse for the coming seasons. On to later on Tuesday. Is this Gigginstown horse, the leader Des Bordes, is he going to live up to his pedigree in the bumper based on what you've seen at home?
Well, so look, it's going to be very hard for him to live up to his big brother, all right. But no, look, he's a fine horse, slightly smaller than his brother, but still a fine big horse.
That's Kopek Des Bordes, obviously, isn't he?
Yes, sorry, his brother Kopek Des Bordes by Tunis, who's a nice stallion in France. Look, I think he's definitely a horse for the future. I think he is going to be very much a chaser in the making. He's that type, that frame. I'm hoping he's sharp enough for this race. But he is definitely a horse for the future. Jody rides a horse Mohan Bukel, which means good boy or good man in good boy in Irish. He's by Poet's Word, and he's much sharper type, much quicker type. Might suit the race more. But look, I'm on lead of the boards, and I like what I see. I like what I see from him at home.
Okay, I'm guessing you've not seen a huge amount of Kutach, who you actually ride for Gordon Elliott in the other bumper on the car.
No, I haven't. No, Paul Byrne owns him, and Paul will be a good friend of mine. And he, when he saw that we had nothing in the bumper, a lot of ours got balloted out. We had a brother to Altior and a brother to Gaelic Warrior there, but they didn't get in. So when he saw I was free, he asked would I ride, and I was more than happy to ride. So myself and Gordon have a pretty good strike rate together. So hopefully we can continue it.
Hopefully one to look out for readers. Finally, on Tuesday, what was your reaction when you learnt, or maybe even when you helped decide that Factile File would drop back to 2 miles?
Well, look, I think it. There's no intermediate trip at Punchestown, so it was whether he was going to go 3 mile again or come back to 2 miles. And I think JP was happy to come back to 2, and so were we. I think his 2 biggest strengths are cruising speed and jumping. So over 2 miles, you can let him run and jump, and it'll be fascinating to see what does happen. Marine National is obviously very impressive at Cheltenham, but if I'm honest, I think Factile File is more than up to this. Yeah.
I was going to say, because I think he is odds on to beat the champion chase winner. That is the regard in which he's held by punters, at least, anyway.
Yeah. Now look, the Ryanair can often throw up a very impressive winner because it's often there's one very good horse in against maybe a couple of Grade 2 horses, and I remember Allaho coming back from one of his Ryanair demolitions to get beaten by Shack and Persois over 2 miles. Now Allaho did eventually win the 3 mile, the Punchestown World Cup, later in his life when he settled a bit more. But Marine National is very good. Whether he's quite Shack and Persois yet, I don't know. But as Barry Connell says, he's improving whenever he runs. So he's the champion chaser. We've got to go and beat him. But I don't think we swap our fella.
Good stuff. We will see how that pans out. Day 2, the first Grade 1 on the card. That sees Jasmine DeVoe, the novice hurdle, take on, a few improvers who probably haven't achieved quite the same level in terms of form, but could still be anything really, including one that you read, J'arrive de Me. What can you tell us about those two and their respective ability?
Yeah, well, look, Jasmine caused a pleasant surprise in the Albert Bartlett. He got his jumping together, and he still didn't jump fantastic, but over 3 miles, he was able to jump much better. And on the new course, there's a big galloping course, obviously not a lot of jumping in the last mile. Punchestown is very different. Punchestown, much tighter track, sharper bends, a lot more jumping. You turn out of the back straight, there's two in a line up to the home straight, and won the last 2 furlongs. But with only a field of 8 runners, I think Jasmine should be fine, and I think he should be very difficult to beat. But obviously, honesty policy is improving at all sorts of rates, rate of knots. So he got a hard race in Aintree. That may or may not leave an effect. And I'm quite happy to be on J'arrive de Me. I mean, look, like I said, honesty policy got a hard race in Aintree. Jasmine DeVoe did blow out here in Punchestown last year. Now, I think he just ran a bit keen in the chat bumper, but J'arrive de Me comes here fresh. He comes here well. He comes here with his confidence sky high. And I think stepping up to 3 miles, going right-handed would all suit. And I definitely I've seen bigger surprises than him popping up.
Yeah, you mentioned the champion bumper. I'm guessing you were never going to deny Jody Town in the ride on Bambino Fever again in this champion bumper. Just on your mount there, Copacabana, did anything come to light after Cheltenham with him?
No, look, we turned on the back straight, and myself and Paul Townham were kind of dropped out and wide, and I kind of said we're in the wrong place on our horses anyway. I was following Bambino and Jody, but it was a slowly run race, and our 2 horses weren't quick enough to come from the position we had them in, whereas Bambino Fever was. So I do think Copacabana is much better than that. Again, I think we'll ride him much differently, much more positively and prominently, which you can do at Punchestown. But look, Bambino Fever, she put in 2 huge performances at Cheltenham and DRF, and she should be very hard to beat. I imagine she'll follow in the footsteps of Facile Vega, Champagne Fever, Cousin Vinny. But relegate Jasmine DeVoe, there's a few that haven't followed up, so it'll be fascinating to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Gallopin Des Champs. I mean, what more can we say, I suppose, about this horse? At some stage, he was almost kind of quite likely to just run a fraction below his incredible best in one of these big Grade 1s. And I know the way you're thinking was on hand to lower his colours in Cheltenham, but he was still so brave in defeat that day, wasn't he?
He was. I mean, look, you could tell from the time he couldn't lie up down to the first fence, we kind of knew we were in trouble there, and it wasn't like there were horses that he wasn't used to lying up with that were going ahead of him. Gentleman's Game was able to beat him to the first, and we were sort of on the back foot from there. But he pulled himself into a position and got to the front at the second last. But look, I know where you're thinking is the younger, improving horse, and he beat us well on the day. So, but I think we were very proud of our horse. But he knew he'd had a race. He came home now. He knew he'd had a race for a couple of weeks. But he's had plenty of time to recover. He's in great form now the last 2 or 3 weeks. Adam Connolly's delighted with him. And he does have a little bit of a Punchestown hoodoo to break. But there's no fast or slow there this year. And, I think he could crown out a fantastic season with victory here.
That would be great to see. I mean, his record there isn't that bad, is it, when you dig into it? He's not finishing last there at all. He's very rarely disgraced himself at all throughout his entire career. But just very quickly on that race, it is a trappy sort of race, isn't it? I suppose Paul might look to make his own running, or if he gets his own way, he'd be fairly happy. But do you see Banbridge as the main danger, or Spillane Tower even?
Well, that's it. I mean, both. You got to take Banbridge very seriously. He also won the King George. He won at Punchestown last year over 2 miles. It looks like he's going to get his ground. It's going to be nice ground, I think. And Spillane's Tower is coming here fresh, good and fresh again. So a little bit like Elite Thomas Jumbon, maybe the fresh horse might have the upper hand. So while it's a small field, the quality of it is, having another 4 or 5 grade 3 or grade 2 horses wouldn't add to it. It's a proper Gold Cup. And I imagine Gallopin can make the running. We know that he can keep things simple. So I don't think it'll be too trappily, but it is definitely a tricky race because there's 3 high-class horses there. And Monty's Pass was placed in the Gold Cup as well, or Monty's Star. So it will be a fascinating contest.
Thanks for Grand National off your mind, Kenny Patrick.
yeah.
Finally, is there anything tucked away in any of the handicaps across Tuesday, Wednesday, or even later in the week that our readers could keep half an eye on?
Well, look, I think Hunter's Yarn back over hurdles could be interesting. He won 3 bumpers. He's a horse who works very well. He hasn't quite fulfilled his potential, I think, and jumping has maybe let him down at times. But I think coming back over hurdles and with a couple of runs under his belt now, I just thought he could be nicely handicapped over hurdles.
Interesting stuff. Go well then, Patrick, this week. Keep up the good work as ever, and we'll no doubt check in during the week as we go. Thanks again.
Great. Thanks so much, Matt.